Nurse and Millionaire's Journey, the unexpected path from hospital to million-dollar empire. Hey there, welcome back to Stories TH. Today we've got an inspiring millionaire story that might just change the way you see success. But a little warning, this story might make you want to quit your job and start a business tomorrow. So, make sure you're ready for some serious motivation. Don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe to Stories TH for more amazing stories. By the way, drop your location and local time in the comments. I'm curious to see where in the world you're watching from. Now, sit back, relax, and get ready to dive into a journey filled with grit, passion, and dreams coming true. Origins, from nurse to dreamer. In a quiet suburb of Philadelphia, Jane's days were a blur of fluorescent lights, beeping monitors, and hurried footsteps down sterile hospital corridors. To the outside world, she was just another nurse, a reliable cog in the vast machinery of healthcare. But deep inside, Jane carried a secret dream, a whisper that grew louder every night after her shifts, a yearning to break free from the endless routine and build something of her own. Jane had always been the kind of person who saw the world in possibilities rather than limits. Her mother used to tell her, "You have the fire of a million suns inside you, Jane. Don't let anyone dim your light." And for years, Jane kept that fire alive, even as the weight of bills, long hours, and exhausting patients threatened to snuff it out. The journey from bedside care to boardroom decisions wasn't part of any plan she had written down, yet it was real and relentless. She didn't come from a family of entrepreneurs or wealthy backers. In fact, Jane's roots were humble, a working-class background where every penny mattered. Nursing was her ticket to stability, a career that paid the bills and gave her a purpose. But when she discovered the world of technology, coding, startups, the idea of creating something new, it ignited something else entirely. It began innocently. During lunch breaks, Jane would sneak into the hospital's tiny computer lab and watch online tutorials about programming languages. Her fingers trembled the first time she wrote a line of code, a strange mix of confusion and exhilaration. This was a language she could learn, a tool she could wield. For once, the world wasn't just about managing someone else's pain or anxiety, it was about crafting solutions, building futures. Of course, it wasn't easy. Working 12-hour shifts meant her energy was drained before she even sat down at her laptop. Nights were a battleground between exhaustion and ambition. Sometimes she wanted nothing more than to collapse, but the code wouldn't wait, and neither would her dreams. Jane's social circle didn't quite understand. "Why ditch nursing? It's secure," her friends said. "Tech's too risky and you're starting from scratch." But she knew that playing it safe wouldn't fill the emptiness she felt. She craved a life where she could be both healer and creator, both practical and visionary. And then there were the moments of doubt, the ones that whispered, "Who do you think you are? Just a nurse, not a CEO." Those nights were the hardest, the times when the loneliness crept in, when the glowing screen seemed to mock her fumbling fingers. But Jane learned to laugh at herself, sometimes joking quietly. "Maybe the world's not ready for a nurse who codes, or maybe I'm just a mad scientist in scrubs." One evening, as the hospital's night shift buzzed with tired energy, Jane found herself staring at a piece of code she had been working on for days. It wasn't perfect, far from it, but it was hers. A simple app designed to help nurses log patient vitals more efficiently, something born from her first-hand frustration. She realized this was the beginning, not just of a project, but of a new life. This moment marked a turning point. Jane wasn't merely surviving anymore. She was stepping into a future she was determined to create. And little did she know, her journey from nurse to tech entrepreneur would soon intertwine with a story far richer and more complicated than she ever imagined, a story of love, power, betrayal, and ultimately, triumph. Remember the hospital nights and that awkward, glowing computer lab? That's where this all started, where the crocodile sunscreen was replaced by a burning ambition no one could put out. Early struggles and doubts. Jane's newfound passion for technology didn't magically dissolve the challenges waiting for her outside the hospital walls. In fact, the deeper she dove into coding and the startup world, the steeper the climb became. Balancing double lives, nurse by day, aspiring entrepreneur by night, was like walking a tightrope stretched over a canyon of exhaustion and uncertainty. Money was tight, as always. Every dollar she could save went into online courses, books, and the occasional tech meetup that promised networking but often delivered awkward conversations. Jane's modest apartment, once a comforting sanctuary, now felt like a cage. The glow of her laptop screen was both a beacon and a burden, illuminating endless to-do lists while her body begged for rest. Doubts were relentless visitors. "Is this really for me?" she whispered in the dark, heart pounding from a 12-hour shift and the stress of debugging code that stubbornly refused to work. The hospital corridors echoed in her mind, patients depending on her, families hoping for comfort, and she wrestled with guilt. Was she neglecting her duties, her calling? Her friends tried to be supportive, but often failed to understand the magnitude of the mental battle she fought. "Why don't you just stick with nursing? You're good at it," they said. But Jane wasn't just good, she was restless. The routine had dulled her spirit, and the prospect of innovation pulled her forward like a tide she couldn't resist. One evening, after a grueling shift, Jane sat at her kitchen table with a stack of bills and a fading cup of coffee. The quiet hum of the city outside contrasted sharply with the storm inside her head. She remembered her mother's words, "You have the fire of a million suns inside you," and wondered if that fire was just smoke. The worst moment came unexpectedly. A critical project she had been pouring herself into crashed. Her app, the one she hoped would help nurses like her, malfunctioned during a live demo with potential investors. The embarrassment stung sharply, amplified by the stifling fear that she might never escape the shadow of her nursing uniform. In that moment, alone and defeated, Jane laughed a dry, bitter chuckle that echoed off the empty walls. "Guess the world's not ready for a nurse who codes," she muttered. But deep down, something stubborn refused to die, the spark that had kept her awake countless nights. What kept Jane going wasn't just ambition, it was a restless curiosity, a hunger to prove to herself and the world that she could be more than one label. She was neither just a nurse nor just a coder. She was the sum of every experience, every struggle, every heartbreak. In those days, she found solace in small victories, finally mastering a tricky piece of code, a kind word from a colleague, or a message from a fellow entrepreneur who believed in her vision. These moments were like fragments of sunlight breaking through storm clouds, reminding her why she had started. Yet, as the stakes grew higher, Jane sensed that this journey would demand more than grit and late nights. It would require alliances, risks, and perhaps most daunting of all, the courage to love openly in a world that rarely rewarded vulnerability. And then, just when she thought the road couldn't get any steeper, fate introduced her to David, the CEO, whose presence would turn her life upside down and set in motion a story neither could have predicted. Remember the glowing computer lab from the hospital, the place where her dreams first sparked? That's where Jane's journey truly gained momentum, fueled by the relentless push and pull between doubt and hope. The unexpected mentor. It was a crisp autumn afternoon when Jane first crossed paths with David. The tech conference was buzzing with ambition and innovation, a playground for dreamers and dealmakers alike. Jane felt out of place amidst the tailored suits and polished presentations, clutching her worn notebook as if it were a shield against the intimidating crowd. Yet, there was a quiet fire in her eyes, a hunger that drew David's attention from across the room. David wasn't just any CEO, he was a titan in the startup world, known for turning fledgling ideas into billion-dollar empires. But beneath the sharp suits and commanding presence was a man who understood struggle more than most. His journey from a modest upbringing to the heights of power was marked by scars and secrets, and a keen eye for spotting potential in the unlikeliest of places. Their first conversation was brief, but charged. Jane pitched her nursing app idea, fumbling slightly under the weight of nerves. David listened intently, not with the dismissive air Jane expected, but with genuine curiosity and respect. He saw something rare in her, a blend of practical insight and raw determination. "Most people come here to sell a product," he said with a smirk. "You're selling empathy, and that's a game changer." That moment ignited a mentorship that would reshape Jane's path. David introduced her to networks she hadn't dreamed of, coached her through the brutal world of venture capital, and challenged her to see beyond her current limitations. But their relationship was more than business. It was a collision of two worlds, each drawn to the other's strength and vulnerability. For Jane, David was a paradox. He was the embodiment of everything she aspired to be: confident, powerful, wealthy, but also deeply flawed and human. Behind closed doors, he shared stories of betrayals, lost loves, and the loneliness that came with success. His vulnerabilities made him real, not untouchable. Their late-night brainstorming sessions often drifted into personal confessions, blurring the lines between mentor and friend, advisor and confidant. Jane found herself revealing fears she had buried for years: the fear of failure, of being invisible, of losing herself in the chase for success. David listened, always steady, sometimes teasing her with dry humor to lighten the heavy moments. "You know," he joked once, "if you can survive a 12-hour shift with demanding patience, you can survive anything the business world throws at you. Just don't expect it to hand you a get-out-of-jail-free card." But beneath the mentorship blossomed a secret neither dared to acknowledge at first, a connection that defied the stark differences in their worlds. David's polished exterior cracked when Jane was near, and Jane found herself questioning what she thought she knew about love and power. The tension was electric, charged with unspoken desires and the risks that came with crossing boundaries. Could a nurse and a CEO navigate a world where every alliance was scrutinized and every weakness could be exploited? Would their bond survive the harsh glare of ambition and social expectations? The answer lay ahead, in moments of joy and heartbreak, trust and betrayal. For now, Jane held on to the hope that with David's guidance, she could transform not just her app, but her entire life. Remember the glowing hospital computer lab? It was there. Jane's solitary dreams began, but here in a crowded, flashy conference hall, the first spark of something bigger ignited, promising a future neither she nor David could have predicted. Secret romance begins. In the sleek, glass-walled office overlooking the city skyline, the air between Jane and David was charged with an unspoken tension, fragile yet undeniable. Their professional alliance had slowly morphed into something far more complex, an intricate dance where business intertwined with desire, and every stolen glance carried the weight of hidden truths. Jane never imagined that amidst boardroom strategies and pitch decks, she would find herself navigating the delicate terrain of secret love. Their worlds couldn't have been more different. She was the dedicated nurse turned fledgling entrepreneur, still carrying the scent of antiseptic and hospital corridors on her skin. He was the polished CEO, wrapped in bespoke suits and an empire of wealth. Their romance began in whispered conversations after late-night meetings, a fleeting touch as fingers brushed over shared documents, the soft echo of laughter behind closed doors. It was a secret kept between them, guarded carefully from prying eyes and office gossip that could threaten everything they had worked so hard to build. The disparity in their lives loomed over them like a silent shadow. David's elite circle was filled with glitzy galas and high-stakes deals, while Jane's past was rooted in humble beginnings and endless nights of sacrifice. There was a chasm of privilege and expectation that neither could ignore, yet their connection defied those boundaries. One evening, as rain traced delicate patterns against the window pane, Jane found herself alone with David in his penthouse office. The city lights flickered below like a sea of stars, mirroring the turmoil within her heart. "How do we keep this us without losing everything?" she whispered, the vulnerability in her voice raw and unfiltered. David's gaze softened, a rare crack in his otherwise impenetrable armor. "We don't have to let the world define us," he said, his voice steady. "But we have to be smart. What we have is worth protecting." Yet, the secrecy bred its own kind of loneliness. Jane often found herself wrestling with doubt. Was their love genuine, or just a fleeting escape from the relentless pressure of their separate lives? Could a nurse and a CEO truly bridge the vast gulf between their realities without losing themselves? Their stolen moments were bittersweet, intense, and intoxicating, but shadowed by the fear of discovery. Every text message, erased hastily, every meeting shrouded in secrecy, added to the weight they carried. Jane's friends speculated, sensing the change but unaware of the truth. David's associates remained oblivious, or perhaps deliberately blind. Amid the glamour and tension, Jane clung to the small joys, the way David's laughter broke through her defenses, the quiet strength in his eyes when she doubted herself, the comfort of knowing that beneath the surface, they were two people seeking connection in a world that often felt isolating. But secrets, like shadows, have a way of slipping into the light. Remember the late nights in the hospital computer lab, the place where Jane first dared to dream alone? Now, those dreams had entwined with another's, and the path ahead was no longer just about ambition, but about the risk of love in a world that demanded perfection and control. Mastering technology skills. As the early morning light crept through the blinds of her modest apartment, Jane sat hunched over her laptop, eyes bloodshot, but burning with determination. The journey from a nurse with a budding idea to a tech entrepreneur was no straightforward path. It demanded every ounce of her resilience and a relentless hunger to master a language far removed from stethoscopes and patient charts, the language of code. Her days blurred into nights filled with online tutorials, debugging sessions, and endless lines of JavaScript and Python. The hospital's antiseptic smells and hurried footsteps faded into memory as the glow of the screen became both her companion and adversary. Every error message was a challenge, every breakthrough a victory. Learning technology wasn't just about writing code, it was about reimagining herself. She needed to shed the self-doubt that whispered, "You're just a nurse," and embrace a new identity, one capable of building, innovating, and leading. But that transition came with its own battles. There were moments when frustration overwhelmed her. The complex logic of algorithms felt like an insurmountable wall, and imposter syndrome clawed at her confidence. At times, she questioned whether the sacrifices, the missed family dinners, the sleepless nights, the isolation, were worth the price. Yet, Jane's spirit was far from broken. She found unexpected joy in small wins, when a piece of code ran flawlessly, when her app's interface finally looked polished, or when a mentor offered praise that felt like sunlight breaking through storm clouds. She learned to celebrate progress over perfection, knowing that every master coder had once been a beginner. Jane's transformation wasn't just technical, it was deeply personal. The meticulous care she had honed as a nurse found new expression in writing clean, efficient code. Her empathy fueled her design choices, ensuring her app was intuitive and genuinely helpful to healthcare workers. David remained a steady presence during this phase, offering guidance but never overshadowing her growth. "Remember," he said during one late-night call, "the world needs innovators with heart. Your background isn't a weakness, it's your secret weapon." Balancing the relentless demands of learning with the pressures of daily life wasn't easy. Jane often found herself sneaking study sessions between patient rounds or poring over programming books in hospital lounges. Her body protested with fatigue, but her mind remained fiercely alert. Her nursing colleagues watched with mixed curiosity and admiration as Jane's passion for tech grew. Some were skeptical, others supportive, but none could deny the transformation unfolding before them. Jane was no longer just the compassionate nurse. She was becoming a formidable force in a world that had once felt foreign. Amid this whirlwind, Jane discovered humor as a vital survival tool. After a particularly grueling coding marathon, she messaged David, "If debugging is the process of removing bugs, then coding must be the process of introducing them, right?" His dry reply, "You've nailed the paradox of tech," brought a much-needed smile. Through the long nights and mounting challenges, Jane learned that mastering technology was more than acquiring skills. It was about rewriting her own narrative. From the fluorescent-lit hospital wards to the digital frontier of innovation, she was forging a new identity rooted in courage, curiosity, and unyielding will. And as the glow from her laptop bathed the room, Jane knew this was only the beginning. The road ahead promised tests of grit and heart she hadn't yet imagined, but she was ready. Remember those early nights in the hospital computer lab where her fingers first danced uncertainly over the keyboard? Now, those tentative steps had blossomed into confident strides toward a future she was determined to claim. The first startup failure. The excitement was palpable, Jane's heart raced as she prepared to launch her first startup, a simple yet innovative app designed to streamline patient data entry for overburdened nurses. She had poured months of relentless effort, countless late nights, and more than a few sacrifices into this project. The pitch deck was polished, her prototype tested, and the small team she'd assembled shared her vision. This was supposed to be the breakthrough, the moment that transformed dreams into reality. But reality, as Jane would soon learn, has a way of humbling even the most determined souls. The launch day arrived with all the fanfare Jane dared to hope for. Potential investors, hospital administrators, and industry experts gathered in a bright, modern conference room filled with nervous anticipation. Jane's hands trembled slightly as she clicked through slides, explaining the app's features and the urgent problem it aimed to solve. The audience nodded politely, impressed by her passion and first-hand knowledge. Yet, when it came time for the live demo, the app faltered. The interface froze, data inputs became unresponsive, and error messages flashed like ominous warnings. A wave of panic surged through Jane's veins as she scrambled to fix the glitches in real time, fumbling under the critical gaze of the room. The silence that followed was deafening. The investors exchanged glances, the hospital officials exchanged skeptical murmurs, and Jane felt her world unraveling piece by piece. The failure was not just technical, it was deeply personal. The dreams she had nurtured suddenly seemed fragile, as if a single cracked line of code had shattered them entirely. Walking out of the conference room, Jane's legs felt like lead. She fought back tears, swallowing the bitter taste of disappointment and the gnawing fear that she'd let down everyone who believed in her, including herself. In the days that followed, Jane faced a whirlwind of emotions: shame, self-doubt, anger. She replayed every moment, searching for where things had gone wrong. Was she out of her depth? Had she been naive to think she could succeed in this cutthroat world? Her friends tried to offer comfort, but Jane found little solace. The failure felt like a wound that cut deep into her identity. The nurse who dared to dream, the woman who believed she could change the system. But amid the storm, there was a stubborn ember of resolve. Jane realized that failure was not a full stop, but a punctuation mark. A harsh lesson that could either define her or propel her forward. David, ever the pragmatic mentor, reached out with unwavering support. "Everyone who's made it big has been knocked down," he reminded her. "What matters is whether you get up and fight again." With his encouragement, Jane began to dissect the failure objectively, learning from the bugs and missteps. She refined the app, strengthened her team, and rebuilt her confidence one step at a time. The experience reshaped her understanding of success. It wasn't about a flawless debut or instant validation. It was about resilience, adaptability, and the courage to confront imperfections head-on. Though that first startup failed, it planted the seeds for a greater vision, one tempered by experience and fueled by an unbreakable spirit. And as Jane looked back, she smiled faintly, recalling the irony. The nurse, who had spent years healing others, now understood that sometimes the most vital healing was the one she gave herself. Remember those early, shaky lines of code in the hospital's computer lab? The failures that followed were just part of the journey, proof that every step, no matter how faltering, brought her closer to the success she sought. Breaking the glass ceiling. After the sting of her first startup failure, Jane found herself at a crossroads. The path ahead wasn't clear, but one thing was certain. She refused to let her dreams be confined by societal expectations or the invisible barriers that seemed to hold back women, especially women like her, from rising in the world of business. In the male-dominated tech industry, Jane quickly learned that talent alone wasn't enough. The unwritten rules, the nods and glances in boardrooms, and the subtle biases threatened to keep her in the shadows. Her nursing background, once a source of pride, was sometimes used as a silent reminder that she was an outsider. Yet Jane was nothing if not determined. She knew that breaking through the glass ceiling required more than skill. It demanded courage, strategy, and an unyielding belief in her own worth. One afternoon, during a crucial pitch meeting with potential investors, Jane faced a room full of skeptical men in suits. Their questions weren't just about the viability of her app. They probed her confidence, her leadership, and, at times, her very place at the table. The atmosphere was thick with doubt, and the pressure was suffocating. But Jane stood tall, drawing on every ounce of strength she had cultivated. Her voice was steady as she explained not just the technology, but the human impact behind it, the exhausted nurses she had cared for, the systemic inefficiencies she aimed to solve. "I'm not just pitching an app," she said firmly. "I'm offering a lifeline to the people who save lives every day." Her words cut through the skepticism like a knife, but the battle was far from over. The investors' doubts were rooted in years of bias and tradition, and changing minds required persistence. Outside the meeting, Jane grappled with frustration and fatigue. The path was lonelier than she'd imagined, with few allies and countless obstacles. Yet she refused to retreat. She sought out mentors, both women and men, who believed in inclusion and were willing to challenge the status quo. Her relationship with David evolved during this time as well. He became not only a mentor, but a partner in advocacy, using his influence to open doors and amplify her voice. Together, they navigated the complexities of power dynamics, blending their strengths to shatter ceilings. Jane also took bold steps within her own company, championing diversity and creating an environment where voices like hers and those of other women and minorities could thrive. She knew firsthand the cost of exclusion and was determined to build a different kind of legacy. The victories were hard-won. There were boardroom clashes, moments of self-doubt, and times when the weight of it all threatened to crush her spirit. But each success, no matter how small, was a crack in the glass ceiling, a testament to resilience. Jane's journey wasn't just about personal advancement, it was about paving the way for others. She began speaking at conferences, sharing her story to inspire women who felt trapped by invisible barriers. Her message was clear. You belong here. Your background, your voice, your dreams, they matter. As Jane broke through the glass ceiling, she discovered new facets of herself: leader, innovator, and trailblazer. The journey tested her limits, but also revealed the boundless possibilities that awaited those brave enough to challenge the norm. Remember those long nights in the computer lab, fingers trembling over the keyboard? That novice had transformed into a woman breaking barriers and redefining what success looked like. Secrets. Behind the CEO's success, David's life was a masterclass in contrasts. To the world, he was the embodiment of success, commanding, polished, and seemingly untouchable. Yet beneath that glossy surface lay a tapestry woven with hardship, sacrifice, and secrets few ever glimpsed. For Jane, peeling back these layers revealed a man shaped not just by wealth, but by struggle. A man who had fought his own battles long before their paths crossed. Growing up in a cramped apartment on the rough edges of a bustling city, David knew what it meant to live with uncertainty. His parents worked multiple jobs to make ends meet, instilling in him a relentless work ethic, but also a profound understanding of loss. The shadows of those early years lingered in quiet moments when the boardroom lights dimmed and the mask slipped away. David's ascent to the heights of power was far from linear. There were startups that failed spectacularly, partnerships that dissolved in betrayal, and nights filled with doubt so thick he could barely breathe. His charisma and confidence were, in part, armor forged in these crucibles. And yet, beneath it all was a vulnerability he shared only with Jane. One evening, after a particularly grueling day negotiating a high-stakes deal, David invited Jane to his penthouse. The city sprawled beneath them, a glittering reminder of all they were fighting for. Over glasses of wine, he finally opened up about the scars no one saw. "I wasn't always this man," he confessed, voice low but steady. "There was a time I thought I'd lose everything: my family, my sanity, even myself." He told her about the betrayal by a close business partner that nearly destroyed his career, the nights when loneliness swallowed him whole, and the relentless pressure to maintain an image of invincibility. "Success isn't about never falling," he said. "It's about standing up each time, sometimes bleeding, but never broken." Jane listened, captivated not just by his story, but by the raw honesty that peeled away the polished veneer. It was a side of David few ever saw: a man grappling with his demons, striving for redemption and connection. Their conversations grew deeper, weaving threads of trust and intimacy. David's vulnerabilities made their relationship more real, bridging the gap between the worlds they came from. Jane began to see that behind the empire and the millions was a person searching for meaning and belonging. But secrets have a way of complicating love. David's past, with its hidden wounds and unfinished battles, sometimes cast long shadows over their present. The very things that made him strong also made him guarded. There were moments when silence stretched between them, filled with unspoken fears and the weight of expectations. Jane, in turn, found herself balancing admiration with caution. Loving a man who carried such burdens was as much a challenge as it was a gift. She wondered if their worlds could truly merge, or if the ghosts of his past would forever haunt their future. Yet, amidst the uncertainty, one truth remained clear. David's story was not just one of business acumen and wealth, but of resilience, forgiveness, and the power of connection. And as Jane held his hand, she understood that their journey was about more than startups and deals. It was about two souls navigating the complex dance of love, ambition, and healing. Remember those early days when Jane's dreams flickered in the hospital computer lab? Now, entwined with David's story, her own journey had taken on new depth, richness, and complexity. Conflicts of love and ambition. The delicate balance between love and ambition, so tender and fragile, began to fray under the relentless pressures of Jane and David's intertwined lives. What started as a secret romance blossomed into a force that both empowered and threatened them, revealing cracks beneath the surface they had carefully maintained. Jane, fiercely independent and driven, found herself pulled in two directions. On one hand, the exhilarating momentum of her startup, the promises of innovation, and the roar of the business world demanded her full attention. On the other, her heart yearned for the quiet moments with David, the rare spaces where vulnerability replaced the armor of leadership. But ambition, as intoxicating as it was, often cast long shadows. Jane felt the sting of guilt whenever late-night calls with investors pulled her away from David's side. She questioned if the love they nurtured in secrecy could survive the demands of their careers, especially in a world where power and status often dictated terms. David, too, wrestled with his own demons. As CEO, his responsibilities were enormous and the stakes unyielding. His love for Jane was genuine, but the weight of his empire left little room for tenderness. He feared that his world of high society, with its ruthless competition and relentless scrutiny, would consume the fragile connection they had built. Their arguments, though rare, were fierce. One night, after a particularly tense board meeting, David confronted Jane. "You're building a future that doesn't have space for us," he said, voice tinged with frustration and pain. "Are you sure you want this? Because it feels like I'm losing you." Jane's response was equally raw. "I'm fighting for us, for everything. But sometimes I wonder if we're just two ships passing in a storm, never finding harbor." The tension wasn't just personal, it was emblematic of the broader chasms they navigated, the expectations of society, the demands of power, and the inequalities that still lingered between their worlds. Jane's humble beginnings contrasted sharply with David's elite upbringing, and those differences sometimes felt insurmountable. Yet, amidst the conflict, their love endured, tempered by honesty and a shared commitment. They sought ways to bridge the gap, carving out moments of connection despite the chaos. Weekend escapes, quiet dinners, whispered promises beneath city lights became lifelines. Jane learned to lean on David's support without losing her voice, while David strove to be present without sacrificing his role. Together, they discovered that love and ambition weren't mutually exclusive, but required constant negotiation and sacrifice. There were moments of jealousy and insecurity, especially when business rivals questioned Jane's place at David's side, or when gossip hinted at their secret. Each challenge forced them to confront their fears and reaffirm their bond. Through the turbulence, Jane clung to a belief instilled long ago, that true strength lay not in perfection, but in resilience and vulnerability. David, in turn, began to understand that success without love was hollow. Their story became a testament to the complexity of love in a world driven by power, where hearts must navigate ambition's sharp edges, and where vulnerability is the bravest act of all. Remember the quiet glow of the hospital computer lab? That small light had grown into a blaze, illuminating not just Jane's path, but the shared journey of two souls, entwined by dreams, conflict, and an unyielding will to thrive together. The rivals' jealousy. As Jane and David's relationship deepened, their partnership attracted not only admiration, but also envy and resentment. Among the polished offices and high-stakes meetings, a rival lurked: Mark, David's longtime business associate, whose ambitions often teetered between loyalty and self-interest. Jane's rapid rise and closeness to David unsettled him, stirring a jealousy that threatened to unravel everything. Mark had been by David's side during the darkest days of his career, sharing victories and failures alike. Yet, when Jane entered the picture, a nurse-turned-entrepreneur from a modest background, Mark viewed her as an interloper, disrupting the established order. To him, Jane's presence was a threat to the carefully balanced power dynamics and to his own aspirations. Behind the veneer of cordiality, Mark began sowing seeds of doubt. Subtle whispers about Jane's qualifications, her capabilities, and her influence over David circulated in hushed boardroom conversations. He questioned whether David's judgment was clouded by personal feelings rather than business sense. Jane sensed the shift immediately. Invitations to key meetings were delayed or overlooked. Proposals she championed faced unusual scrutiny. The warmth and respect she once enjoyed from the executive team cooled into guarded skepticism. The tension reached a boiling point during a crucial strategy session. Mark openly challenged Jane's ideas, questioning the viability of her projects in a tone laced with condescension. The room crackled with unease as allies watched silently, unsure where their loyalties lay. David, caught between his mentor and his partner, felt the weight of divided allegiances. He confronted Mark privately, warning him that undermining Jane was not only unjust, but also detrimental to the company's future. But Mark's resentment ran deep, fueled by pride and fear of losing his foothold. Jane, meanwhile, grappled with a mixture of frustration and resolve. The betrayals were painful, not just professionally, but personally. She realized that success in this world demanded more than innovation and hard work. It required navigating treacherous waters where alliances could shift like sand. Yet, Jane refused to be sidelined. She redoubled her efforts, rallying support from those who believed in her vision. Her transparency and integrity became her armor against the corrosive whispers. She leveraged David's mentorship and her growing network to push forward, determined to prove her worth on her own terms. The rivalry also tested her relationship with David. They faced late-night conversations filled with raw honesty about trust, power, and the cost of ambition. Jane's vulnerability and David's steadfast support forged a stronger bond amid the storm. Amid the corporate chess game, Jane learned the delicate art of strategy not just in business but in human relationships. She understood that winning wasn't always about defeating opponents outright, but about resilience, patience, and choosing battles wisely. Despite the shadows cast by jealousy, Jane's light grew brighter. Her determination to rise above petty politics and claim her space in the business world inspired those around her. Remember the hospital nights when she first dreamed of change? Those early struggles had prepared her for this crucible, a test not just of skill, but of character. The turning point deal. In the unpredictable world of startups, there are moments that define a journey, moments when all the struggles, sleepless nights, and doubts crystallize into breakthrough. For Jane, that moment came wrapped in the form of a deal that would not only validate her vision, but also alter the course of her life forever. Months of tireless work had led to this opportunity, a chance to partner with one of the largest healthcare providers in the country. The company was interested in Jane's app to streamline nurse workflows, recognizing the potential to revolutionize patient care on a massive scale. But such a deal came with intense scrutiny, high stakes, and unforgiving deadlines. Jane stood before the negotiating table with a mix of nerves and steely determination. The room was filled with seasoned executives, legal advisors, and stakeholders who had seen countless pitches and were not easily impressed. Yet Jane's presence commanded attention, not because of titles or wealth, but because of the authenticity and passion that radiated from her. As the discussions unfolded, every clause was dissected, every word debated. The pressure was immense. Jane felt the weight of not just the deal, but of the countless people who had supported her journey, the nurses who would benefit, the investors who had bet on her, and David, whose steady confidence buoyed her spirit. Tensions flared at times. Opposing counsel challenged her on product scalability, data security, and compliance. Mark's shadow lurked still, attempting subtle maneuvers to undermine her. But Jane navigated with grace, drawing on her deep knowledge of both healthcare and technology. She was no longer just a novice. She was a formidable negotiator. In a quiet moment between sessions, David approached her. "You've grown into a leader, Jane. This is your moment, own it." His words rekindled her courage, and she returned to the table with renewed vigor. After hours of negotiation, a breakthrough emerged, a mutually beneficial agreement that promised not only financial reward, but also validation and the platform to scale her vision. The room erupted in applause, but for Jane, the real victory was quieter and deeper, proof that she belonged in this world. The deal marked a pivotal turning point. It unlocked resources, attracted new talent, and opened doors that had previously seemed sealed shut. Jane's company grew, and with it, her confidence. Yet, with success came new challenges, heightened expectations, media attention, and the constant balancing act between innovation and business realities. The stakes were higher than ever. Through it all, Jane remembered the early days, the hospital nights, the lonely coding sessions, the sting of failure. Those memories fueled her resilience and grounded her in purpose. She also treasured the quiet moments with David, who celebrated not just the deal, but the woman behind the success. And so, with the turning point deal secured, Jane stepped into a new chapter, not just as a startup founder, but as a beacon of possibility for those daring to dream beyond their circumstances. Remember the tiny computer lab where it all began? That modest space birthed an idea that was now set to change an industry and a life. Balancing wealth and heart. Success had arrived like a tidal wave, lifting Jane and her company to heights she had once only dreamed of. The million-dollar deals, the growing team, and the recognition in the tech and healthcare worlds painted a picture of triumph. But amidst the glittering facade of achievement, Jane found herself grappling with a challenge that money couldn't solve: how to balance the wealth she'd built with the love that grounded her. The pressures of leadership were relentless. Meetings stretched late into the night, strategic decisions demanded laser focus, and the constant buzz of innovation meant that rest was often an afterthought. Jane's days were filled with spreadsheets, investor calls, and product development updates, while her evenings were often consumed by public appearances and networking events. David, ever the seasoned CEO, understood these demands intimately, yet their relationship, once fueled by stolen moments and quiet confidences, now struggled to find space amid their packed schedules. The luxury penthouses and gala dinners, once symbols of aspiration, sometimes felt like cages where genuine connection was a scarce commodity. Jane wrestled with guilt. Was she sacrificing the tender love they nurtured for the relentless pursuit of success? Could ambition coexist with intimacy, or was she destined to choose one over the other? One weekend, seeking solace from the corporate whirlwind, Jane surprised David with a retreat to a quiet lakeside cabin, far from the clamor of city life and the demands of their empires. The soft rustle of trees and the gentle lap of water against the shore offered a balm for their weary souls. Under a canopy of stars, they shared conversations stripped of titles and expectations. Jane revealed her fears of losing herself in the race for more, while David confessed his struggle to balance vulnerability with strength. They laughed, teased, and sometimes sat in comfortable silence, rediscovering the simple joy of being together. Those moments reminded Jane that wealth was not measured solely by numbers on a balance sheet, but by the richness of shared experience and emotional connection. Back in the city, Jane began to recalibrate. She set boundaries to protect their time, learned to delegate without losing control, and embraced the messy imperfections of love amid chaos. David, too, adjusted, recognizing that partnership meant presence, not just power. Their relationship became a dance of give and take, ambition fueling their dreams, love anchoring their hearts. They celebrated successes together and found strength in facing setbacks side by side. Jane's journey taught her that the true measure of success was not just financial gain, but the ability to hold on to what mattered most, the people who made the journey worthwhile. and as the glow of the city lights faded behind the cabin's windows, Jane felt a profound sense of peace. Here was the balance she sought, not in choosing between wealth and heart, but in weaving them into a tapestry of purpose, passion, and love. Remember the humble beginnings in the hospital's computer lab? Those tentative first steps had blossomed into a life where ambition and affection could coexist, illuminating a path both bright and meaningful. Betrayal and heartbreak. The world Jane had painstakingly built began to tremble under the weight of a devastating betrayal, one that struck not from a rival or competitor, but from within her own circle of trust. It was a wound that cut deeper than any failure or setback, shaking the foundation of her life, love, and ambitions. The betrayal came unexpectedly. A trusted team member, someone Jane had mentored and relied upon, leaked sensitive information to competitors. Confidential strategies and upcoming product launches were compromised, putting Jane's company at risk and threatening the fragile edge of their newfound success. Jane's heart shattered, not only because of the professional damage, but because the act came from someone she had believed in, someone who shared late nights, dreams, and the burden of struggle. The sting was sharp, mixing disbelief with a profound sense of personal loss. David was equally shaken. The breach was not just a business threat, it was a violation of the loyalty that bound them. Yet, amidst the chaos, he stood by Jane, offering unwavering support, even as they grappled with the implications for their partnership and future. The aftermath was a storm of emotions, anger, sorrow, confusion. Jane found herself questioning her judgment, wondering how she could have been so vulnerable. The trust that once felt like a shield now seemed fragile and fleeting. Amid the heartbreak, Jane retreated inward, seeking solace in memories of her early days, the nights coding alone in the hospital lab, the quiet determination that had fueled her rise. Those moments became a refuge, a reminder that even in solitude, she had strength. Confronting the betrayal demanded courage. Jane faced difficult conversations, severed ties, and rebuilt security protocols. But more than that, she confronted the painful truth that not everyone's ambitions aligned with hers. This chapter of her journey was marked by resilience. Jane learned that betrayal, while devastating, could also be a catalyst for growth, a brutal teacher pushing her to fortify not just her business, but her heart. Through the cracks left by heartbreak, new understanding began to grow. Jane realized the importance of boundaries, of discerning who to trust, and of safeguarding her vision without closing herself off. David's presence became a steadying force, reminding her that even in the darkest moments, she was not alone. Their bond deepened through shared pain and commitment to rebuild. And as Jane emerged from the shadows of betrayal, she carried with her a hard-earned wisdom, the knowledge that success and love require not only passion, but also vigilance and grace. Remember the early days when the glowing computer screen was her only companion? That same determination now fueled her recovery, turning heartbreak into a stepping stone toward a stronger future. The power of resilience. Emerging from the shadows of betrayal and heartbreak, Jane discovered that resilience was more than just bouncing back. It was the art of transforming adversity into strength. The wounds she bore, both personal and professional, had carved a new depth into her character, forging a determination that was unbreakable. The path to recovery was neither quick nor easy. Every day presented challenges that tested her patience and resolve. Rebuilding trust within her company required transparency, humility, and a willingness to confront uncomfortable truths. She had to lead not only with vision, but with empathy, understanding the fears and doubts of her team. Jane embraced the lessons from her past failures and setbacks, weaving them into a tapestry of wisdom. The nurse in her, trained to heal others, now extended that compassion inward, treating herself with kindness, even as she demanded excellence. David remained her steadfast ally, standing beside her through late-night strategy sessions and moments of doubt. Their partnership, tempered by trials, grew stronger, anchored in mutual respect and shared purpose. Together, they navigated the complexities of business growth and personal healing. Jane also learned the importance of self-care, a concept once foreign in her relentless pursuit of success. She carved out moments for reflection, meditation, and connection with loved ones. These practices replenished her spirit, fueling the energy needed to face each new challenge. In the midst of rebuilding, Jane found renewed inspiration. She launched initiatives to support other women entrepreneurs, creating spaces where stories of resilience were shared and celebrated. Her journey became a beacon, illuminating the power of perseverance for those facing their own battles. The media began to take notice, not just of her company's growth, but of Jane's authentic leadership. Interviews and speaking engagements allowed her to articulate a vision of success rooted in courage, vulnerability, and community. Yet, Jane remained grounded. She knew that resilience was not a destination, but a continuous journey, a daily choice to rise, to learn, and to lead with heart. As she stood on the cusp of new opportunities, Jane reflected on the winding road that had brought her here. The early nights in the hospital lab, the failed startup, the betrayals, and the victories, all threads in the fabric of a life defined by strength and hope. Remember the flicker of that first code on a dim screen. That small spark had ignited a blaze, fueled by resilience and an unyielding spirit. Building a million-dollar empire. From the ashes of struggle and resilience, Jane's vision took form solid, expansive, and unstoppable. Her company, once a humble startup born in stolen hospital moments, had blossomed into a million-dollar empire that reshaped healthcare technology and redefined what was possible for women entrepreneurs from modest beginnings. Jane's leadership style had evolved, blending the compassion honed from years as a nurse with the strategic acumen demanded by the business world. She cultivated a culture where innovation thrived, alongside empathy, ensuring her team felt valued and inspired to push boundaries. The empire she built was not just about profits, but about impact. Jane's app revolutionized nurse workflows across the nation, reducing burnout and improving patient care in hospitals and clinics. The success stories of healthcare workers whose lives were transformed became the true measure of her achievements. Yet, with empire came new complexities. Managing rapid growth required Jane to delegate, trust, and sometimes let go, challenging for someone used to controlling every detail. Board meetings, shareholder expectations, and public scrutiny tested her resolve, but Jane met each challenge with grace and tenacity. Her relationship with David matured as well. Together, they navigated the intricate dance of power, love, and partnership. The whispers of their secret romance faded into a story of mutual respect and shared dreams. David became not only her confidant, but also a collaborator, championing causes close to their hearts. Jane also became a mentor, using her platform to uplift others. She launched initiatives supporting women in tech, advocating for diversity and inclusion, and speaking at conferences worldwide. Her journey from nurse to tech mogul became a beacon of hope and possibility. Amid the glittering success, Jane remained grounded in her roots. She never forgot the fluorescent lights of the hospital, the quiet hum of the computer lab, or the nights filled with doubt and determination. Those memories fueled her purpose, reminding her that true success was measured not just in wealth, but in the lives touched and the barriers broken. Humor remained a lifeline. During a company celebration, Jane joked, "From scrubs to suits, who would have thought coding would be my favorite shift?" Her laughter, warm and genuine, echoed through the room, a testament to a woman who had navigated storms with grace. As Jane stood on the balcony of her headquarters, overlooking the city that once felt so distant, she felt a profound sense of accomplishment, not just for the empire she'd built, but for the woman she'd become. Remember the humble beginnings in the hospital's computer lab? That spark had ignited a blaze that now lit the way for countless others, daring to dream beyond their circumstances. Jane's story was far from over. It was a living testament to the power of vision, resilience, and love, the ingredients that transformed a nurse with a dream into a millionaire, shaping the future. Love in the limelight. As Jane and David's successes soared, their private romance began to attract the unavoidable glare of public scrutiny. What had once been a secret refuge, quiet dinners and whispered conversations, was now thrust into the spotlight, exposing vulnerabilities neither was fully prepared to face. The tabloids, always hungry for stories of love and power, seized on their relationship, painting a narrative filled with intrigue, speculation, and scandal. Headlines questioned the authenticity of their bond, casting shadows over Jane's accomplishments and David's reputation. The whispers of power couple were tinged with skepticism, as critics questioned whether their love was genuine or a strategic alliance. For Jane, the invasion of privacy was jarring. The woman who had fought so hard to build an empire was suddenly reduced to gossip columns and social media speculation. She grappled with feelings of exposure and the fear that her personal life would overshadow her professional identity. David, accustomed to public attention but fiercely protective, became her shield and anchor. He stood by her side in press conferences and public appearances, deflecting rumors with calm confidence and unwavering support. Behind closed doors, he reminded Jane of the strength they shared and the values that bound them. Navigating love in the limelight demanded new skills. Jane learned to embrace vulnerability as a source of power, sharing their story on her terms and reclaiming the narrative. They appeared together at charity events, tech summits, and philanthropic galas, demonstrating a partnership built on mutual respect and shared vision. Yet, the glare of fame also brought challenges. Enemies used the spotlight to fuel professional rivalries, while friends questioned motives and loyalties. The pressure to maintain perfection strained their relationship, requiring constant communication, trust, and forgiveness. Amid the chaos, Jane found solace in the quiet moments, early morning coffee on their apartment balcony, the warmth of David's hand in hers during a city walk, the laughter shared away from cameras. These moments reminded her that beneath the headlines and expectations, their love was real and deeply rooted. Jane also became a vocal advocate for privacy and authenticity in an age dominated by social media, encouraging others to hold on to their truth amidst external noise. Their journey through the limelight was a testament to resilience and the transformative power of love that thrives not despite adversity, but because of it. Remember those humble beginnings in the hospital's computer lab? From solitary dreams to a public partnership, Jane and David's love story had become a beacon, flawed, fierce, and fearless. Navigating high society. As Jane and David stepped deeper into the world of high society, Jane quickly realized that this glittering realm was as treacherous as it was dazzling. Lavish galas, exclusive parties, and boardrooms filled with the elite were a far cry from the humble hospital corridors where her journey began. Navigating this new social terrain required more than charm and wit. It demanded a keen understanding of unspoken rules, alliances, and appearances. At first, Jane felt like an outsider, peering into a world of opulence and privilege, where every smile might mask a hidden agenda, and every conversation carried layers of meaning. The etiquette was exacting, the expectations high, and the stakes in social maneuvering just as critical as those in the business world. One evening, at a prestigious charity event, Jane found herself surrounded by polished figures exchanging veiled compliments and strategic alliances. She felt the weight of judgment, not just for her background, but for the daring audacity of being there at all. The whispers of the nurse-turned-entrepreneur echoed faintly, a reminder of the barriers she still faced. David served as her guide, introducing her to influential figures and helping her decode the nuances of high society. Yet, even his confidence could not shield Jane from moments of discomfort and self-doubt. Behind the glittering chandeliers and flowing champagne lay complex dynamics of power, privilege, and competition. Jane learned to navigate these with a blend of authenticity and strategic grace, refusing to lose herself in the process. She forged alliances carefully, seeking mentors and peers who valued integrity and vision over status. She also remained vigilant against those who viewed her as a threat or a novelty. Balancing the demands of high society with her own values was an ongoing challenge. Jane often retreated to quiet moments, reflecting on her journey and reaffirming her purpose. She remembered the grit and humility that had brought her this far and resolved not to let the trappings of wealth erode her authenticity. Her presence in these circles began to shift perceptions. Jane was no longer just a curiosity, but a respected figure whose insights and leadership commanded attention. She used her platform to advocate for greater inclusivity and to spotlight causes close to her heart, bridging worlds that often seemed disconnected. Navigating high society taught Jane resilience, diplomacy, and the power of staying true to oneself amidst glitter and expectation. Remember the small hospital computer lab where her dreams first took shape? From those quiet beginnings to the dazzling heights of elite gatherings, Jane's journey was a testament to courage, adaptability, and unyielding spirit. The Secret Keepers. In the shadowed corridors of power and privilege, Jane and David found themselves bound not only by love, but by secrets, fragile threads woven into the fabric of their shared life. The secrecy surrounding their relationship was both a shield and a burden, protecting them from judgment, yet isolating them in ways neither had anticipated. From the early days of their romance, discretion was paramount. The stakes were high. In worlds governed by reputation and influence, a single misstep could unravel everything. Jane's rise from humble beginnings was an open book to some, a point of pride to others. But in the elite circles David moved, it was sometimes met with skepticism or disdain. Together, they crafted a careful narrative, revealing only what was necessary and guarding the rest fiercely. Trust became their currency, exchanged in whispered conversations and unspoken understandings. The weight of secrecy extended beyond their personal sphere. In business meetings, social events, and public appearances, their interactions were scrutinized and often misinterpreted. They developed a language of glances and subtle gestures, a silent dialogue that spoke volumes. Maintaining this balance was exhausting. Jane often felt the strain of living two lives, the authentic self she cherished and the polished facade demanded by society. The tension between transparency and privacy sparked moments of doubt and loneliness. David, too, grappled with the duality. As a public figure, he was accustomed to the spotlight, but craved genuine connection free from pretense. Their secrecy, while necessary, sometimes felt like a barrier between them and the world they wished to inhabit openly. Despite these challenges, their commitment deepened. The shared burden of secrecy forged a unique intimacy, a fortress against external pressures. They became each other's confidants and protectors, navigating the complexities of love in a realm where trust was both precious and perilous. Yet, secrets have a way of pressing against the surface. Rumors began to circulate, fueled by rivals and opportunists, eager to exploit vulnerabilities. The couple faced moments of crisis where the choice between exposure and protection loomed large. In these trials, Jane and David learned the importance of resilience, communication, and unwavering loyalty. They confronted the fear of loss and betrayal, choosing to stand united in the face of uncertainty. Their story became a testament to the power of trust, how it can both conceal and reveal, bind and liberate. Remember the quiet hospital nights where Jane first dared to dream alone? Now, entwined with David's journey, their shared secrets shaped a narrative of love and courage amid the shadows. The role of trust. In the intricate dance of love and ambition, trust emerged as the keystone holding Jane and David's world together. Beyond the glamour, the deals, and the public facade, their relationship thrived or faltered on the fragile foundation of belief. Belief in each other's intentions, integrity, and unwavering support. Trust was never given lightly. Both had tasted betrayal and disappointment, making the act of surrendering vulnerable parts of themselves a courageous leap. For Jane, trust meant revealing her fears and insecurities, the lingering doubts of the nurse who once felt invisible amid hospital chaos. For David, it meant lowering the shields forged through years of battle in the ruthless corporate arena. Their early years together were marked by cautious steps, each learning to read the other's signals and honor boundaries. There were moments when misunderstandings threatened to unravel their bond, when silence spoke louder than words, and when the weight of expectations seemed unbearable. Yet, it was in those moments of fragility that trust deepened. They learned to communicate openly, to listen beyond the surface, and to offer forgiveness when imperfections surfaced. Their commitment was tested not by ease, but by adversity, proving that true trust withstands storms. In business, trust translated to delegation and shared vision. Jane relinquished control to David when needed, understanding that partnership required collaboration, not dominance. David, in turn, trusted Jane's instincts and leadership, valuing her perspective as integral to their shared success. Outside the boardrooms, trust built intimacy. It was the quiet assurance that despite distance, pressure, and public scrutiny, they stood united. Late-night conversations peeled back layers of pretense, revealing souls committed to mutual growth and healing. Their trust also extended to their teams and communities. Jane fostered a culture of transparency and empowerment, recognizing that collective success depended on shared trust and respect. But trust was not static, it required continual nurturing. The couple embraced rituals that reinforced their bond, morning texts of encouragement, shared meals away from screens, and moments of vulnerability where masks fell away. When challenges arose, whether professional conflicts, personal doubts, or external threats, their trust became a refuge, a source of strength that propelled them forward. Jane often reflected on how far she had come from those early days in the hospital computer lab, where trust was sparse and survival paramount. Now, trust was the legacy she cherished, most a bridge between past struggles and future hopes. And as they looked toward the horizon, Jane and David understood that love grounded in trust was not just a sanctuary, but a launchpad for dreams yet to unfold. Remember those first flickers of connection, fragile yet fierce. That was trust, the quiet flame that, nurtured with care, could light the darkest paths. The final confrontation. As Jane and David ascended to the pinnacle of their success, a shadow loomed, one born from jealousy, betrayal, and the high-stakes world they inhabited. The final confrontation was inevitable, a clash that would test not only their professional acumen, but the very foundations of their relationship. The catalyst came in the form of a powerful adversary, Mark, the once trusted business associate, whose simmering envy had grown into open hostility. Emboldened by alliances within the industry and fueled by a personal vendetta, Mark launched a calculated campaign to undermine Jane's credibility and destabilize the company. The assault was multifaceted, leaked documents casting doubt on the integrity of their app, whispered rumors questioning Jane's leadership, and aggressive legal challenges designed to drain resources and morale. It was a war waged in boardrooms, courtrooms, and the court of public opinion. Jane faced the storm head-on. The weight of defending her vision and protecting her company felt crushing, yet she refused to yield. Her resilience, honed through years of struggle, became her armor. Every challenge was met with strategic precision and unshakable determination. David stood unwaveringly by her side, leveraging his influence and experience to counteract the attacks. Their partnership, forged in trust and tempered by adversity, became a beacon of strength amid the chaos. The confrontation also forced Jane and David to confront their own vulnerabilities. The pressure threatened to fracture their bond, exposing cracks that had long been concealed. But through candid conversations and mutual support, they reinforced their commitment, emerging more united than ever. Behind the scenes, allies rallied. The team Jane had built, inspired by her leadership, doubled down on their efforts. Industry supporters and community advocates spoke out, reaffirming the value and impact of their work. The battle was arduous and relentless, stretching over months with moments of despair and hope intertwined. Yet, Jane's belief in her mission and David's unwavering partnership fueled their endurance. In the end, the final confrontation became a defining chapter, a testament to the power of resilience, love, and strategic courage. Jane not only defended her empire, but emerged with greater clarity and purpose. The victory was more than legal or financial. It was a triumph of integrity and the unbreakable spirit that had carried her from the quiet hospital nights to the heights of innovation. Remember the first flicker of code in that hospital lab? The humble beginnings that seemed so distant now echoed with the strength of a woman who had faced storms and emerged victorious. Jane and David's story was a beacon for all who dared to dream and fight for love, for ambition, and for the future they believed in. Redemption and forgiveness. After the fierce storms of conflict and confrontation, Jane and David found themselves standing at the crossroads of redemption and forgiveness, a place where past wounds could either fester or heal, and where the future depended on their willingness to embrace vulnerability. The battle with Mark had left scars deeper than either anticipated. Trust had been tested, alliances strained, and the weight of betrayal lingered in quiet moments. Yet, amidst the ruins of conflict, Jane sensed the necessity of letting go, not for weakness, but for strength. Forgiveness was a journey neither could take lightly. It meant confronting painful memories, acknowledging imperfections, and choosing compassion over resentment. For Jane, it involved forgiving herself for moments of doubt and perceived failures. For David, it meant releasing the grip of control that fear had imposed on him. Their path to redemption was marked by honest conversations that laid bare fears, regrets, and hopes. They recognized that holding on to grudges only chained them to the past, while forgiveness opened doors to renewal. This process extended beyond their relationship. Jane reached out to former adversaries and estranged colleagues, seeking reconciliation where possible. She understood that leadership demanded not just vision but grace. The act of forgiving transformed Jane's leadership style, infusing it with empathy and authenticity. She cultivated an environment where mistakes became opportunities for growth and where the human element was honored alongside business goals. David, inspired by Jane's example, also embraced change. Together, they championed initiatives promoting mental health, resilience, and community support within their company and beyond. Their shared commitment to redemption fostered deeper intimacy. The vulnerabilities once feared became bridges, drawing them closer in mutual understanding. Jane reflected on how far they had come from the solitary nights in the hospital lab, where ambition was fueled by uncertainty. Now, their strength lay in the power to heal and rebuild. The journey was ongoing, with moments of challenge and triumph intertwined. Yet, Jane and David faced the future united, armed with lessons learned and hearts open. Remember the first flickers of hope that sparked in the quiet glow of a computer screen? That hope had matured into a profound capacity for forgiveness and renewal. Their story was no longer just about success or love, but about the enduring power of redemption, a testament to the resilience of the human spirit. New beginnings. Together, with the shadows of past trials fading, Jane and David embraced a new chapter, one shaped by hope, unity, and the promise of shared dreams. Their journey, marked by ambition, love, and resilience, had brought them to a place where personal and professional lives intertwined harmoniously, paving the way for fresh beginnings. After weathering storms of betrayal, societal scrutiny, and relentless pressure, the couple found strength in their collective vision. They made a conscious choice to build a future not defined by past hardships, but by mutual support and unwavering commitment. This new phase was characterized by collaboration on deeper levels, launching joint philanthropic initiatives aimed at empowering underserved communities and investing in startups led by women and minorities. Their work transcended business, reflecting a shared purpose rooted in giving back. Jane's leadership flourished in this environment. She became a beacon of inspiration, balancing the demands of a tech empire with the nurturing of genuine connections within her company and beyond. David complemented her approach with strategic insight and unwavering loyalty. Together, they redefined what partnership meant, not just as lovers or business allies, but as co-creators of change. Their relationship blossomed in trust and open communication, allowing vulnerabilities to be shared without fear. The couple also embraced personal milestones, a modest wedding surrounded by close friends and family, a home filled with warmth rather than opulence, and traditions that honored their roots and aspirations. These moments grounded them, reminding them of the simple joys often overshadowed by their fast-paced lives. They continued to navigate the complexities of high society, but with newfound confidence and authenticity. Jane no longer felt the sting of outsider status. Instead, she carved her own path, respected for her intellect, compassion, and resilience. David's influence grew alongside hers, and together they championed causes that mattered, setting examples for the next generation of leaders and lovers. New beginnings brought challenges, of course, balancing growth with sustainability, public life with privacy, but Jane and David faced them with the lessons of their past firmly in hand. They found joy in the journey, cherishing the small victories and learning from setbacks with grace. Remember those early nights when Jane's fingers first danced uncertainly over the keyboard in a hospital lab? That tentative spark had ignited a blaze that now illuminated a shared path forward. Their story was no longer just about individual success, but about the power of partnership. Two souls intertwined, ready to face whatever the future held together. Legacy of love and success. As Jane and David settled into the rhythm of their shared journey, they began to contemplate the legacy they wished to leave behind, a tapestry woven not just from the threads of business success, but from the deeper fabric of love, influence, and inspiration. Jane's rise from a nurse with humble beginnings to a tech entrepreneur who transformed healthcare was a story that resonated far beyond boardrooms and investor meetings. She became a symbol of possibility, a living testament that determination, compassion, and resilience could defy societal barriers and redefine destiny. Their shared legacy was multifaceted. Professionally, Jane's company continued to innovate, expanding its reach and impact while maintaining a steadfast commitment to ethical leadership and social responsibility. Under their stewardship, the enterprise became a beacon for inclusive innovation, championing diversity and fostering environments where all voices could thrive. But beyond corporate achievements, Jane and David were deeply invested in nurturing the next generation. They established scholarships, mentorship programs, and incubators for young entrepreneurs, particularly those from marginalized communities, ensuring that doors they had fought to open remained accessible. Their philanthropic endeavors reflected their personal values, empowering others, fostering education, and addressing systemic inequities. Together, they advocated for healthcare reform, technology accessibility, and gender equality, leveraging their platforms to amplify voices often unheard. In their personal lives, Jane and David cultivated a home filled with warmth, integrity, and purpose. They embraced traditions that honored their diverse backgrounds and instilled in their community a spirit of generosity and inclusiveness. Jane often reflected on the arc of her journey, the hospital nights filled with quiet dreams, the crucible of challenges, and the triumphs that followed. She recognized that true success was not measured solely by financial milestones, but by the lives touched and the barriers dismantled. David, too, found fulfillment beyond business metrics. His partnership with Jane enriched his understanding of leadership, love, and legacy, inspiring him to champion causes close to their hearts. Their story became a blueprint for those who dared to dream big while remaining grounded in humanity. It was a narrative of hope, resilience, and the transformative power of connection. Remember the first flicker of code in that small hospital lab? That spark had ignited not only a company, but a legacy one that would ripple through time, inspiring countless others to believe in the impossible. Jane and David's legacy was a testament to the enduring power of love and vision, a beacon lighting the way for generations yet to come. Reflections on the journey. As the sun set over the cityscape, casting golden hues across the windows of their shared office, Jane found a rare moment of quiet reflection. The journey from nurse to millionaire entrepreneur had been anything but linear, marked by trials, triumphs, heartbreaks, and unwavering determination. She thought back to the early days, the fluorescent-lit hospital corridors where her compassion took root. The lonely nights hunched over a laptop in a cramped computer lab, fingers fumbling over lines of code that felt as foreign as a new language. Those moments, steeped in uncertainty, had sown the seeds of a remarkable transformation. Jane's journey was a testament to the power of resilience and vision. Each setback, whether a failed startup, a betrayal, or the pressures of high society, had become a stepping stone rather than a stumbling block. The scars she bore were badges of honor, reminding her of battles fought and lessons learned. Her relationship with David had been both anchor and sail, providing stability while propelling her forward into uncharted waters. Their love, forged in the fires of ambition and tempered by vulnerability, was a source of strength that sustained them through the darkest storms. Jane understood that success was multifaceted. It wasn't merely about wealth or status, but about impact, legacy, and the authenticity of one's journey. She took pride in the inclusive culture she had nurtured within her company, the lives improved by her innovations, and the hope she inspired in others who dared to dream. In her reflections, Jane also acknowledged the importance of balance, the delicate interplay between ambition and love, power and humility, public life and private sanctuary. She recognized that true fulfillment arose not from achievement alone, but from the connections forged and the integrity maintained along the way. The lessons of her journey extended beyond personal growth. They were invitations to others to embrace their own potential, to persist through adversity, and to lead with heart. As Jane gazed out at the horizon, she felt a profound sense of gratitude for the struggles that shaped her, the people who believed in her, and the uncharted future that awaited. Remember the hospital's computer lab, where a nurse first dared to dream beyond her circumstances? That quiet beginning had blossomed into a life rich with meaning, purpose, and possibility. Jane's story was not just a narrative of success, but a living testament to the enduring human spirit, a beacon for all who seek to transform their own lives. A hopeful future. Standing at the threshold of what felt like an endless horizon, Jane and David looked forward with a blend of excitement and grounded wisdom. Their journey, marked by trials, triumphs, love, and relentless ambition, had prepared them not just for success, but for the responsibility that came with it. The future was no longer an abstract dream, but a canvas awaiting their touch. Together, they envisioned innovations that would reshape healthcare and technology, philanthropic ventures that would uplift communities, and a legacy that transcended personal achievement. Jane felt the weight of possibility settle comfortably on her shoulders. The nurse who had once navigated sterile hospital halls now commanded boardrooms and inspired legions. Yet, she remained deeply connected to the values that had guided her: empathy, resilience, and authenticity. David, equally invigorated by the path ahead, saw their partnership as a force capable of bridging worlds, merging business acumen with heart, power with compassion. Their combined vision was a testament to what could be achieved when love and ambition intertwined. As they prepared for the next chapters, new projects, challenges, and adventures, they embraced the unknown with courage. They knew the road would not always be smooth. Setbacks and surprises were inevitable, but fortified by their past, anchored by trust, and propelled by shared dreams, they were ready. Their story was a beacon of hope for all who dared to envision a better future. It whispered to dreamers, entrepreneurs, and lovers alike that with perseverance and heart, barriers could be broken and new worlds created. In this hopeful future, Jane and David stood not just as individuals, but as a united force, a living testament to the power of dreams, resilience, and enduring love. Remember the quiet nights when Jane first dared to code alone? Those fragile beginnings had blossomed into a symphony of success and partnership, lighting the way forward for generations to come. As the sun rose on this new dawn, their journey continued, brimming with promise, purpose, and the endless possibilities of tomorrow. Life's journey is rarely a straight path. Jane's story teaches us that true success isn't measured solely by wealth or titles, but by resilience, authenticity, and the courage to keep moving forward despite setbacks. Whether you're changing careers, facing personal challenges, or pursuing a new dream, embracing vulnerability and trusting yourself are key. Building meaningful relationships founded on trust and mutual support can be the strongest foundation to weather life's storms. Remember, failure isn't the end, it's a stepping stone to growth and wisdom. By staying true to your values and balancing ambition with compassion, you create a life that's not just successful on paper, but deeply fulfilling and impactful. No matter where you start, your passion and perseverance can lead you to unimaginable heights. This story is a reminder. It's never too late to reinvent yourself, to build connections that matter, and to leave a legacy rooted in love and purpose. Keep dreaming, keep striving, and trust the journey. As we gently close this chapter of Jane and David's incredible journey, remember, success isn't just about wealth or titles. It's about the quiet strength that carries you through the storms, the passion that fuels your dreams, and the love that grounds your soul. Life may not always be easy, and the path may twist and turn, but each step forward is a victory in itself. So, wherever you are right now, know that your story matters. Take a deep breath, feel the calm, and trust that your moment is coming. If you found inspiration here, please like and subscribe to Stories TH for more stories that touch the heart. And hey, drop your location and local time below. I'd love to know where you're joining from. Until next time, take care of yourself and keep dreaming quietly. This is our little moment just between us.